national debt. If I read your schedule correctly, you introduced something in Congress about diverting funds that states had turned high-speed rail money down to go to the Treasury to be applied to the national debt.
I have.
Possibly. Could you tell me about that? Or
Well, the bill is in the Transportation Committee. Unfortunately, before the new Congress was sworn in, Secretary of Transportation LaHood decided to reallocate the money that Ohio and Wisconsin didn't want to use to build high-speed rail elsewhere. And the crisis is not in trains, the crisis is in the deficit and the debt, and what this is going to do to our standard of living, both in the short term, but very much so in the long term. So the money ought to be returned. Last 2 days in Washington, we passed 2 bills with housing programs that returned unspent money in the TARP program, which was the bankers' bailout, into the Treasury, and that's where unspent money has to go, rather than being allocated to other kinds of spending programs. Now, on the subject of high-speed rail, high-speed rail only works when you have a feeder system so that people can get on the train and go to where the high-speed rail train stations are. It does not work if you have something that's called high-speed rail that stops at a train station every 12 miles and doesn't allow the train to actually get up to a high speed. And in terms of the Milwaukee to Madison run, when it initially started out, it was supposed to average 59 miles an hour. Well, you can drive 65 most of the way to Madison, and you're not going to get dumped off away from either the state government offices or the university. And I don't know what kids are going to buy these tickets at $30 one way when they can get a ticket for $10 to $12 on the Badger bus, and they actually stop about 2 blocks away from where the university is. The other concern that I have is the safety problem. Where high-speed rail is popular, which means where they have a feeder system, in Europe, and at least until yesterday in Japan, they did not have any grade crossings. And all of the high-speed tracks through built-up areas were elevated. This is not in the proposal. And with the grade crossings being shut off, or building very expensive overpasses or underpasses, you'll have the police and fire and ambulance on one side of the tracks, and if the 911 call is on the other side of the tracks, it's going to be a lot longer for the first responders to actually show up and provide the assistance that is needed. I also use the example of Economwalk, where the train runs right through the middle of town. That train line was put in 1846, and the town was built up on each side of it later. The freight train line going through Economwalk until about a decade ago had a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. There was at least one person getting killed every year because they couldn't get off the tracks in time, and the speed limit was reduced to 40 miles an hour by the state. And the only fatality that has occurred in Economwalk was a suicide on the tracks. So reducing the speed limit for the trains has literally been a lifesaver. Now, if a high-speed train goes barreling through there at 110 to 130 miles an hour, we're going to have the fatality rate of those that got killed at 60 doubled or tripled or quadrupled. These are the kinds of things that I don't think were thought through before the former governor and the present Secretary of Transportation hopped on board. Carol Carpenter, Evergreen.